Hi, my name is Isabella, and I'm the Intern Whisperer. And this week's tip of the week is you want to collaborate, don't isolate. And what that means is you want to encourage collaboration between employees to reinforce the idea that you are all on a team. A culture of collaboration highlights the freedom for individuals and teams to practice active communication and knowledge sharing. This helps to break down departmental silos and creates an openness to share ideas and learnings. You want to know a fun fact? Not really that fun, but 86% of employees and executives cite a lack of collaboration or ineffective communication as part of the workplace failure. So collaborate, don't isolate. So welcome to the Intern Whisperer. I am so happy to have you on the show, Joe. And just so our listeners know, this is Joe Dalton. He's world renowned. He's out of, tell us your country.
Ireland, Dublin.
There you go. And so don't mistake it for Scotland, please. We don't want to do anything like that. That would, I don't know. Is there wars between the two countries still?
No, not at all. No. But people sometimes ask us, how's it getting on with your prime minister? And I go, no, wrong country. And we're asked, do you drive on the opposite side of the road? So
do you?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what using a Mac is like for me. I use a PC, everything's on the right side of the screen, right? Like, all of my things. When I go and use a Mac, it's on the left side. I go, it's like driving on the opposite side of the road in any country.
And everyone drives stick.
I can do that. My dad, he made sure all of us kids, we all knew how to drive on a stick. Made the biggest thing.
It helps if you need to get a quick getaway.
Yeah, it does. And so many people don't know how to do it.
Yeah, practice. Like everything in life, it is practice. But as I say, I am honored, I am delighted, and I am excited to be on your show. So thank you very much for reaching out to me.
I am thrilled too. We had so much in common, when I was like looking you up, and I went, oh, you've done a TEDx talk. And I went, okay, I'm on the TEDx leadership team. It's something I want to do. You're also a consultant. You also do podcasts. I went, and when we, talked like last month, I think it was, maybe it was 2 months ago. I'm not sure. But whenever it was, I went, well, we both love things about servant leadership, spirituality. We're just like vibing.
Fighting on it. Yes, I think it is. And not only podcast, but I'm also the chairman of Dublin South FM radio. So when all our shows go out on the airwaves as well. So that's the beauty of it. We're not just podcasts, we're a radio station there.
And it's live radio, right? I mean, is it pre-recorded also?
No, some of the shows we do live, some of them do pre-record, but yeah, no, we're banging out 24/7. And believe it or not, we have our biggest audience is Ireland, America, and then England when we tune it from the airwaves into digital. And some of our shows have reached the top 10 in America. And my show, Breakthrough Brand, Crossing the Rubicon, has won awards, and for Best Talk Radio awards as well. So,
I'm going to put a pin on that one. I'm going to take us back just a minute. So 5 words. We always start the show this way. 5 words that describe you and why those 5 words. So you can go in any order, but remember, I've got them and I can prompt you.
I was thinking witty there in a minute, the Irish shanty song, and thinking some that but I think the ones that really resonate with myself, there's a couple around it, but resonate is family. Family is very important to me. Spirituality also is something that I believe is internal and that which resonates with me. Trust as well, being ethical, being honest, moral values, all these resonate with me. And the reason why values are so important, because they make up who we are. And I don't think a lot of people really know what their own internal values are. They might think what a value is of their business, but if you sit down and analyze your values, and they will slightly change as you go along, but I think having them is a great compass to move forward in your own life.
I agree. Yeah, people, I've seen more progressive companies put their, corporate values on the page, and I agree with you totally. People do that in the business world. Not everybody. Maybe a third of them do that. But
I've
people don't think about it.
No, like I've stood up in companies and I've read out mission statements and I says, who said this? And nobody knows. And I said, you have. And they go, what? I says, yeah. So, the mission statement is about the energy, what's vibrant about the people, which is a community within an organization. And I think that's the thing. It's really sort of homing in what your values are, because when you have your values, you have that ripple effect. And if you walk out every day and understanding what your values are, you come very proud, you come very confident, and you become you. Yeah.
You said one of your other values was courage. I like that one. And it wasn't anything that you brought up when we were originally talking just a few seconds ago. So why courage? I think that's such an important part of being a human.
Well, yeah, courage. The reason with courage is that, when we talked about spirituality there as well as one of them, that, a lot of people believe true spirituality is love, hugs, and kisses, but it's not. It's about, courage, and it's about standing in your own two shoes and taking that full individual responsibility for your own life. And courage is the thing that really makes us authentic. It's the one thing that makes us stand out from everyone else and kind of go, you know what? I have to be truthful. I have to have courage to step forward and believe in what I believe in, but also have that moral compass to say, I do no harm to no one and I cause no harm to anyone's property, but have courage to protect you and your family unit as well.
Yeah. Many times courage comes in different packages. I was looking through a lot of your podcasts, and the one that was about mental illness, I know you've had several guests in that area. I went, that takes a lot of courage to come and say, okay, so I'm either autistic or I struggle with depression or I've had, issues even with maybe suicide. These are hard things for people to share. And that takes so much courage to put that out there, and just it helps break, I think, the stigma for sure, and get other people to say, hey, I've struggled with that too.
It's interesting you say that. And the reason, because let's look at the digital world that we're on. You, me, are
Yeah.
analog, and the world we live in is analog, and everything is conducted digitally. And on the digital world, everyone is wonderful and brilliant and having an awesome life. And, it's, but behind that, everybody struggles. And, if you have a story to tell it, because that one story may change someone's life. It may save someone's life. Like we've done shows on many a topic over this last since 2017, and I get emails or I get messages from people saying, thank you. That show has changed, or that person that you had on has changed my thoughts and has given me the strength to do something that I never thought. So I think we all have to be aware of words have power and our stories have great influence. And if we do, if we do it from the heart and do it compassionately, we're all right. We're stepping forward into the light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I agree. People are made for relationship with one another, and part of that is that connection. And when you strip off whatever the mask is, that, and there's usually layers of masks that people wear, then you'll get to real truth.
Here's something that I've been bouncing around in my head at the moment, and it's about the buzzword that we talk about, and the buzzword is it's imposter syndrome. And there's different imposter syndromes, and I did a test on imposter syndrome, and it came up, you're the imposter, you like working on your own, you like doing this. And I was looking, and it says, I'm not an imposter. I'm very self-aware of who I am. And that's after taking me a journey that I needed to go on. And all the things that this test has told me that I'm an imposter. I'm not. I'm me. And I'm quite happy and comfortable in my own two shoes. I like my own solitude. I like helping people. And I like, doing things the way I do. So sometimes when we think of the imposter, you're not really an imposter. You're just sort of vibrating of who you are and vibrating at your own level. And not everything is an imposter.
Yeah, I agree. People, like, we've heard this term, people pleaser. And that term, it's more of like being a chameleon, and you adapt to whatever that person is that's around you, and you want to make them happy. People could call that an imposter syndrome. Not really. It's just part of, who we are. I feel like there's, just like we were talking before we got on the air, how history repeats itself. We always are repeating ourselves. We just give it a new term, give it a new, phrase that we're going to call it. Like there's quiet quitting. I went, what is that? That's just ridiculous. Because I'm going, that just means you're off the clock. Did they officially quit? Like, why are we calling it that? I have an issue with that term.
Yeah, we use different languages and different ways of elevating our own opinions. And I think people just need to sit back and listen. I've always learned over the years that it's a case of listen to what's being said and what's not being told.
The subtext behind the words, right?
Yeah. And I've learned to listen to that, especially when we have politicians talking, about what's being said. And let's look at page 56 of the document. Oh, look at that. My God, they never mentioned that for us. But yeah, I think that we do need to sort of understand about who we are as a person, because I think that's the biggest journey in business life, whatever it is. The biggest struggle that anybody has is figuring out who they are. And once you figure out who you are, you can actually then you can achieve anything within your realms of possibility. And I say realms of possibility because I know I'm never going to be an astronaut, but I know that I'm capable of doing other things. And then you have purpose. I think we have different levels of purpose. When you reach something, you've completed that purpose, and then you need to go and reach the next one. And you also then need to do, I don't think people celebrate their wins, that I think people need to actually, when you do something, celebrate it. When you hit that goal, celebrate it, because by celebrating that, as we spoke before, is gratitude, and celebrating your wins. And if you celebrate your own wins, give yourself a pat on the back, you're moving forward then as well on it.
Yeah. So how'd you get started in your career? What was your first job? How'd you end up here? And let's throw that TEDx talk in there also, please.
Where did I? Wow. I've had multiple, you could call me a serial entrepreneur. And I've had multiple, I've worked in, multiple organizations. I've worked in multiple industries. I've traveled the world. I've spoken different locations. I've done a lot. I'm 52. I know I look great for 52.
You do.
Thank you. But I've had an amazing life, and people says I should write a book on it, So where did it all start? I think when I was about 13, I was selling baked potatoes for my sister at a show. My sister was a great entrepreneur, great woman. In the 70s, she was forward thinking. Like, just to give you my sister would have brought Apple to Ireland and built the factories in Apple, and she knew Steve Jobs quite well.
Wow.
As well. And she would have worked with a lot of big Western Digital. She brought Western Digital to Ireland, and a lot of pharmaceuticals as well. So an amazing entrepreneur. So I remember she had a company selling fat food, and we were doing a presentation. So I set up a little baked potatoes, and I was selling this, and I went, oh my God, I love this. I love communicating with people, and I'm getting money for it. At 13, this was great. So I sort of knew that I had a gift where I could use language and communication. And then from there, went through school, then left school and got into computer programming. And as I was in computer programming, the summer job that we all get, and we know summer jobs, I got into being a bus conductor. So if no one knows what a bus conductor is, it's a man who's on a bus that walks around collecting fares from people.
Mm.
So I was then, and I was probably one of the last bus conductors in Ireland as well. So I was meeting all these people.
Question. Is a bus conductor the same as a train conductor? Because on a bus it's short, so I don't know. Is it?
Yeah. So our buses would be double deckers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you would have people, so I would be collecting the money off people, right? So they could
Gotcha.
travel. And I was meeting people from poor areas. I was meeting people from affluent areas. I was meeting young, old storytellers, all this. And this was really creating my curiosity of how people are and how they act. It was great. So from there, I knew that it was communication. And then, I was also working, and I got into doing the computer programming. And I remember a lecturer went, "Oh, this is great. Anyone who remembers MS-DOS, that's black and white screens, black and green screen." And the lecturer said to me, "Look, isn't this great? If you type all this in, you get this." And I was going, "Oh, okay." So he was working on it. And I said, "So if I type all this in, sit at this desk and type all this in, I'll get something." And he said, "Yes." And I went, "No, I can't do this. I will go insane. I'm to be out." So I made a decision and I left.
Oh.
And yes, and I left and I decided to pursue myself as an entrepreneur. And I got into, and I realized that at the age of 13, I was to sell. And in selling, I realized that I enjoyed selling or working with people. So I got into a business, and I was 18 at the time, 19. I got my first company car. And then from there, I left Ireland and went abroad to Germany, and I worked as an agent in a company. And then I set up my own agency. And in that agency, then I worked there for 10 years. And the agency was probably making a turnover of 3.2 million a year on it. And
wow.
I lived in, we called it the Billionaires Boys Club. Fast cars, I partying, workaholic. In Nevada, remember being when we were over in the States in Nevada, in a nightclub and buying everybody a drink because I could. The drinks are on me, and that was the ego and all the stuff that when you're 20 and you're partying, your ass off, as one would say. And then in my 30s, I sort of got a bit more grounded, left that business, and then came back to Ireland. And I remember walking around one day and looking to see what one would do. I took a year off, and I got a call from someone says, "Would I like to go back to the States?" So I set up an office then in San Diego, and I got then on aircraft carriers, and I traveled the world on aircraft carriers, providing the military with vehicles, so the armed forces. And I got to see the world there. A lot of people, would only dream. Like I was watching Top Gun, Tom Cruise the other day, and the planes taking off on the aircraft carriers. I says, I used to be on them, traveling the world, and it was a great experience. And again, that was part of the life. And then from there, when I was back in Dublin, I was walking around looking for a gym, and I couldn't find a gym. So I found a premises, and I opened up a gym. So I created a premises, opened up a gym, got PT in, worked on that for about 4 years, had Kung Fu Kids, martial arts, had the gym as well. and woke up one morning and we got that into pharmaceutical. So we had a pharmaceutical big company, and we were probably the early adopters of getting a gym in a pharmaceutical. And I woke up one morning and said, right, I'm done with it, and sold it and sold it. And in the meantime with that, then I was getting involved in a company which was genetic performance, and that was DNA testing for athletic ability and nutrition. And everybody says you're mad. Why? Who would want to know about their DNA? Who would want to know about anything? And we pursued that. We had an office in Dublin and an office in Washington, D.C. And from Washington, D.C., then we got backing from the Irish government on that. We got that on Good Morning America. And that was one of our stories of business. But as it was in that business, I was getting people to come in and help us with A, B, or C, and they weren't really helping me. And I was feeling I'm giving this money out, but I'm not getting it. And then I said, you know what? I've been mentoring people or helping people. I was involved with the EU, the European Union 2.0. I was involved with them, helping the digital world, bring the digital world into small businesses. And I kind of went, you know what? I think it's time to help. I think it's time that I want to help people. I want to help coaches, consultants, small business owners who have great ideas, but can't really get that going. So I decided that in probably 2014, I decided that I was going to really focus in on coaching and consulting and helping businesses. And I have to say, out of all the years of all the businesses that I've worked in and all the companies I've created, I absolutely adore it. I love not helping people, but I want to change people's lives. I want people to live their dreams. And all you need to do is the systems and processes and behaviors that can actually help them do that. That's a long-winded, short.
No, that is super good. So that ties into wealth acquisition. What is that? Because that's what you're helping people to achieve. And what we were talking about before we got on the air is, most people are afraid of money. They don't want to talk about it. They'll talk about everything else. Well, that and spirituality. They don't like to talk about either one of those.
The wealth acquisition was created because one of the benefits of being the chairman of a radio station and getting to interview people from all over the world. So if you think I've been interviewing people every week since 2017. Okay.
Wow. How many episodes is that? Do you know?
Oh, God. A couple of hundred anyway. There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot on it. Some of them have been deleted in the beginning.
Really?
And my journey started there. I'll tell you what happened. I was called in to do an interview like this in the radio station. And they said, oh my God, you're really knowledgeable and you have a lovely radio voice. Would you do your own show? And I went, oh yeah, I can do my own show, definitely. The time came, I had created Breakthrough Brands, which was a TV show. So I created that, but we were trying to get that to video or to show, but it wasn't happening. So, oh my God, radio, why not? On the day that I was to do the show, I was in the mirror in the men's bathroom. I was sweating under the arms. My heart was racing, and I gripped the toilet or the sink, and I looked in the mirror, and I muttered words to myself. What the F, I was a bit stronger, have you got yourself into? And I looked and I had visions of me climbing out the bathroom window and running off into the sunset, right? But I created that fear and I conquered it, slayed the dragon. And I went in and I did the show and everything sort of evolved from there. And in the interviews that I spoke to people about success and business, and I'm an avid reader, I read about 20 odd books a year, and I'm curious, and in that, I actually realized that there is systems and processes that people have that make them successful. So in doing that, and in all the books and all the education and all the knowledge, I believe that there was a wealth acquisition formula that need to be addressed. And in that, I nailed it down to 6 points. 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
One is identify. And do you want me to go through them with you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the first thing is with business owners, they need to identify their core value, what their indispensable qualities are, what makes them authentic, their intellectual property, their self-worth, their purpose. Estimate, establishing what they can bring to the market and how their offer or their knowledge will change people's lives. And then jumping into what I call create. And create is supporting and challenging that help you, creating a killer offer, bringing all your knowledge, asking your audience what they want, and mashing that together. And with your wisdom and knowledge, creating something that will inspire and change people's lives. Then, when they have that, they go to packaging. And packaging is your professional brand, your clear message, your pricing, industry language and principles, tangible and intangible ideas that you can bring to market. And then promoting is communication, influence, your real benefits of what you can bring, profit, the activities that you do to make people know that you are the expert in your industry. And then it's selling. That's learning techniques, learning the sales process, presentations that help your clients make the decision to buy. And when you have all them spinning, it's then going to upscaling. That's developing that system that will help you upscale and grow your business. Now, the reason why I picked the 6 of them, excuse me, is because I looked at like Tony Robbins, I looked at Brendan Burchard, I looked at Marshall Goldsmith, Alan Wise. I looked at all these people, and there's multiple more. And I noticed in some form or another, they all had these. And you have to have them all lit up for a business to work. And what was I noticed that most people were going out and they were creating a business, building a website and trying to sell it. And then they were going, what am I doing? Because what it is people are really good at what they have. They have the clients, right? But they need to build that bridge between both. And that's the step. And the one thing, which is the wealth acquisition, real point of view, it's not about riches, which is money. It's about wealth. And the wealth also comes within. And it's the self-confidence that you can have yourself to be the person that you want to be. And everything out of all my life, I have realized that once you click that spark inside and have that confidence, you can achieve whatever you need to achieve.
I agree with everything that you said, honestly. Now I come from teaching background. It's similar because coaching, facilitating, teaching, they're all interwoven together for sure. Because you can see things as the outsider that the other person doesn't see.
Yeah, like I've been asked to go and coach and consult and give lectures in colleges. I've, government bodies have asked me to go and speak to, hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners to help them with their business. Trinity College asked me to come in and help their young companies to develop their business if they wanted to go for funding and everything as well. And one of the companies that I coached in Trinity won the award and won the money as well. So yeah, so it's
very rewarding, right? You
very, very
celebrate
rewarding,
with them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's It's great, and I'm also part of a mentoring program where there is young people in an area that would like to have a mentor, and I'm part of that program as well, where I help people, young people, mentoring, and I'm also part of the global ambassadors as well, goodwill ambassadors as well, and that's a
Hmm.
global organization that helps people in privileged areas to be more successful, third world countries or whatever as well. Yeah.
I think that, we often focus as just different generations. We focus on, obviously, we want to share lessons with those that are coming after us, right? And they're always, open to hearing that. There's so much to be said, though, between like, peer mentoring, because honestly, we're both in the same generation. We're both, podcasters, we're both consultants. And you can teach me things as easily as, myself. I know that I can teach other people things that are in the same generation. And I don't know why there's more of a focus on younger. I guess it's just because that, we're spanning all of those different levels of generations to make sure the stories get told. I think that there's a deeper reason than just teaching, honestly.
Yeah, like if you look at you look at generations of past when it was the family unit, and in
Right,
that family unit there was other family and the grandparents and
right,
everybody was in that unit. And the way society has dragged us now, they shoot you over to one part of the States or me to Germany, and the family is unit is being broken up. But before travel, people would stay in the unit. So, young people would have children, and the grandparents would raise them, give them the
hmm,
knowledge and everything as well. And what's happening with life is we still want to sort of engage and give those young people the wisdom. But I
right.
was I was on a call beforehand. I was saying to someone, when I was 30, I thought I was a man, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
when my brother-in-law said to me, "You're still a boy, and you have a lot to learn," and I went, looking back now, he was dead right.
yeah,
And when I was 40, I had ha moments. I went, oh, if I knew what I knew now when I was 30, life would have been great. And then when I was 50, I go, oh my God, if I knew
yeah.
this. And I know when I'm 60, I'll have the same as well. I'll have the same on it.
It's so funny because we don't, when we're really young, we don't really heed the advice that people tell us when, they're older than us. We just go, yeah, 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 whatever.
What is it? Youth is wasted on the young.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, first time I heard that quote, I don't know where it originated, but first time I heard it came from It's a Wonderful Life. And I went, I love that movie. It's always a good reminder of like, be grateful, live where you are right now.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely
Yeah.
live in who we are and what we're about. But that's isn't life. Like we talk about spirituality. Do there's two things that I talk about in one of in my talks, and going back to you asking about the TEDx, the TEDx talk really was 6 minutes, and
Yeah.
that I had to get a lot of information into 6 minutes, not a
It's
half an
hard.
hour. Yeah, it's hard, and it was the most scariest thing that I did because I had to get place words in certain areas for the story, and that was really telling people that you know all the stuff that's outside, that's external, that affect you, doesn't matter. Really
Mhm.
doesn't matter. It's what's internal, and it's
Yes.
how you process your thoughts. It matters. That's all. So if you can learn to teach this muscle that's in our head, to not worry about the external stuff and only focus on the internal stuff, you're doing okay. And
Yeah.
we can either think of a negative thought or a positive thought. We can't think of both together. And the negative thought will try and push the positive thought out. And you have to learn to get that negative thought and just park it to the side, take it out of your body and
Yeah.
sort of look at it. And, I say we have three bodies. We have physical, mental, and emotion. you
Yes.
know. And it's like people say, I'm exhausted. And you say, well, are you exhausted physically, mentally, or emotionally? So we have three bodies, you know. And when you have that negative thought, take it out, understand that you're removing it from your physical, removing it from your mind, and removing it from your emotional. And if you speak out loud and talk to it, going, look, worry, you've no power in me. All you are is just a thought in a bubble, a sphere sitting up here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not part of me. And if you talk to that, you'll realize that it's not part of you. And
Yeah.
then that simple process kicks in where you can place it with a positive thought. And that positive thought, and the more that we do that and practice it, and it's not easy because we have been bombarded for centuries with garbage,
Mm-hmm.
consciously and subconsciously. And we, as we get aware, are more conscious. It's we have a toothpick and we're picking away, not a shovel or a hammer. We're picking away at it to make ourselves better. And I think that's what it is. I think as we evolve, we need to sort of understand what's inside our heads. And if you look at the great motivators and look at the great anyone that's great, or the Jim Rohn, or people like who else would it be? Cotton McGard, can't think of a name, but these people, they've all gone through a process that they know that everything internal matters for you to be external on the outside. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. You and I are so on the same page with so many things. What is the best life lesson that you've learned from one of your kids? It can be, at any age.
Zen to zero.
Oh, okay. Expand, explain.
We try on a daily basis to be living in a Zen life. So this is the practice. And our children can, at a young age, drop us from Zen to zero with pushing those buttons, screaming and shouting,
Mm-hmm.
roaring, doing everything possible to knock us from Zen to zero. And most people can jump from Zen to zero, which is zero being a negative. And what my children have taught me is to catch myself from going from Zen to zero and understanding that path and stopping it and slowing it down so you can then go back to Zen.
Mm, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a brief moment to acknowledge our sponsor, and we are going to be right back.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat5 Studios.
And we're back to the second half of our show. We haven't even finished the first part of the questions. This has been so rich, so extremely rich. I'm loving the conversation. So I want to ask a few other questions from our first part. What has been the biggest impact in your life, or who in your life has had the biggest impact on your life, and how? How did it make it better? Or most valuable life lesson from that person?
Again, I'll go back to my sister,
Uh,
who's no longer with us. She died of cancer there just before COVID. And what I loved about my sister and do love about her, she was a woman in a man's world. And she taught me that when I got into business, I couldn't understand why women were getting paid less than men. I didn't think, for me, men and women are equal. And she taught me that, no matter who you are or what you are, if you offer value and put in your own goals and push forward, you can be highly successful. And she was a person in business who had to be tough. So she had to wear men's suits in business and fly around the world. But behind that, in life, she was the most wonderful, pleasant person.
mhm.
And I learned from her the biggest gift, the biggest decision, the biggest lesson that I learned from her was make a decision. And most people in life and most people in business get stuck because they don't make decisions. And the one thing that she always said, make a decision. By making that decision, you move forward. Decision might be a wrong decision, but you then can correct it. But at least you're moving forward. And if you don't make any decision, you'll be stuck and you'll stay exactly where you are.
I agree with that, because making no decision, it's still a decision, but you're not, going back to your courage word, you don't have the courage to make a decision because you're afraid of whatever, you could make the wrong decision. Make the wrong decision. It's okay. You can, just like your sister said, you can go back and correct it.
Yeah. And, she was, inspired me, and I think about her often. But, you look at then other people, my wonderful, beautiful wife who has to put up with my craziness each and every day. And, we are who we are and we love each other. And we know we have our own quirky ways and our own faults, but we realize, because we both work from home, that we must love each other because of 2.5 years of COVID lockdown. We're still together. You know.
And it goes back to loving a person is a choice. Every day, if you made that promise that you're going to stay together, that's a choice. We all know that we could still walk out. We always can. But the choice to stay and the choice to accept the person the way they are, just like what you said with the quirkiness, but who isn't quirky? We're all quirky.
As she says, who else would have me? If she says it to me long enough, I start to believe her. No, but it's a case of I think in relationships, I think most people go into a relationship and they say to the other person, "You've changed. You've changed." I don't think the person has changed. It's just they've gone back to who they are.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And they don't seek to find the beauty in the person that they've chosen.
Yeah.
Everybody has beauty and everybody has ugliness. You have to choose to stay on that side of the beauty of the person.
Yeah, and I think it's everything for the right reason and not the wrong reason, especially at the very beginning of it. And like with my children, with my adult children and younger children, I try and teach them every day to be the person they are and respect themselves and understand that they don't need to live their life depending on someone else. That it's their own choices. And the great questions, and I think we spoke about this in the past, was, I am enough.
Yeah.
I am safe. I am home. Yeah.
So what movie or book do you think forebodes what the future 2030 could potentially look like?
Well, book, I don't think a lot of people, it's not even put in our school's education anymore, is Animal Farm.
I know the book. I had to read it.
Yeah.
You'll have to explain to our listeners what Animal Farm is about, though.
Well, Animal Farm is a book about animals being disgruntled on a farm, and they take out the farmer, and then there is suddenly a hierarchy within the farm, and the pigs take control, and they believe that everybody is equal. And basically then that the pigs move into the house and they get everybody else to work, but they're all equal. And it's giving you a visualization of what communism could be like or is like. And it's how it all at the end, I won't destroy it on the book and anything, but how it all ends up. And I think that a world that we live in at the moment, there is a lot of controls, and there's a lot of people who are using certain fears of how the world is perceived, not to help, but to put more control on people. That's what I would feel. And the only thing that what's happening with the world is people, I fear people will give up freedom for comfort and happily walk off the side of a cliff for belief systems that could be wrong.
Yeah. And just so our listeners know, Animal Farm was written by George Orwell. He was a futurist also. Very, yeah, that was a great book.
It was a great book. Yeah.
It still is a great book. It still is. It's not past tense. It still is.
No.
Yeah. And it's relevant to our 2022 world for sure.
So the future, was that the second part of your question? The future, what does the future look like?
Yeah, what do you think the future 2030 is going to look like? You can pick jobs, industries, anything, the world in general.
I think as we're going down a road, there's two paths. I think there's going to be a path of system where people are happy for a system to be their nurturer and to control and keep them safe. And I also believe there's going to be a sovereign path where people believe that they're sovereign and the only thing that is above them is God and everything else below them is a system and process. And there's a choice that humanity is going to have to make at that crossroads. We look at the world as I said earlier, you and me are analog and all the trees and everything is analog, but we're going down a world which is digital. Digital is, in my opinion, is great, but it's not normal. And we seem to be depending on this one thing for survival. And any good business owner knows you don't keep all your eggs into one basket. And even going into the digital currency that's trying to be forced upon us, I asked a question. If you went out and asked every person in the street, do you want digital currency? They'll go, no. But it seems to be something that is forced on us, that people need to sort of say, no, look, you can have both if you want, which we have, but we need to actually then just be able to have it in such a way that life has to be kept simple in some way on it. So the world is changing as well. Definitely education system is changing. I think the people will need to be more intuitive and understand what's being told or taught to their children. I think that's important instead of just allowing a system to take place. And the other thing with the job scene I think is evolving as well. And that's something that worries me in such a way that where is the job scene going to go in the next decade and what will jobs look like, especially with AI and robotic technology taking over a lot of the manual work. But where's the rest? Where's it all going to end? That's the one thing that I wondered on as well.
Have you seen this? It's on Netflix, Black Mirror. It's been out for 5 seasons, but they do these little vignette stories of like the future of technology, AI, VR, and whatnot. I've only seen 3, and there's at least, I don't know, 25 episodes. It's very futuristic. Have you seen it by chance? I'm curious.
I think I, like yourself, I watched 3 episodes with the one with the eye.
No, I actually, I got put into season 5, so I didn't start with
5,
season 1.
And I watched the 3 and I wasn't resonating with me, wasn't hitting with me, because we don't have TV here. We have Netflix, but we don't really have TV. And why? Because I'm sort of think there's better things. Our kids don't have tablets, sadly don't have screens and our kids. So I wanted to keep our children intuitively
Unplugged.
going unplugged. So
Yeah.
intuitively, I want them to be curious. I wanted them to have all the qualities about asking those questions, really getting involved in their creativity, um, lateral thinking. And by doing that, and we had to make those sacrifices as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them grow and play and create stuff instead of stuck on a screen. So, you know, Bill Gates and Zuckerberg would tell you they wouldn't have their children on tablets because they know. And that was a decision that I decided as well that we would.
It's addictive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Not only addictive, but I think it also creates something in their mind which is numbing,
Yeah.
and my daughter, my 10-year-old flies through books, reads books like going out of fashion. Can't keep
Mm-hmm.
enough books for her. And I know if she had a tablet, she wouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. TikTok.
Oh gosh, TikTok's so bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will go and I'll spend 5 minutes on it. It used to be on Instagram, right? And I don't post personally on any of those. I only focus on LinkedIn, Twitter. But on Instagram, this little after you've been on it for 5 minutes, it says it's been 5 minutes. You want to leave? There's a choice, you can make whether you're going to stay or not. TikTok does not to give you that choice. It just keeps playing.
Yeah, no, don't have it. Refuse to have it.
Yeah.
Refuse to have it.
Yeah.
I get more if like even with Instagram, I can jump on Instagram. You go, oh my God, where's that last 20 minutes gone? What have I learned? Nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd rather be creative in some way on it.
So what do you think the next pandemic is going to be? I don't think it's going to be COVID. Like we've already done it. It's over. It's not over, but there's going to be something, and we need to be paying attention in this digital world for sure. Technology.
I think the next pandemic is what is planned for us. I think we have to be very careful and vigilant of the world that we live in. So we're all worried about the world and we're all worried about sustainability, and everything is sustainability at the moment. And I think sustainability is being used to us to control more so than protect. And if you really got into, again, what's being said and what's not being told, if you look at the cost of creating solar and all these other batteries, the huge energy cost that goes into them and the lifespan of all these as well isn't really sustainable either. We're only led to believe, and it's again two rules. One is for the masses to do one thing, and then there's a different small minority that will offer a different solution just for themselves. So I think as a pandemic, I think we need to be, whatever it may be, we need to look at it objectively and understand that is it being done for support or help, or is it being done for control? So
Control.
If you look at history keeps repeating itself, and there's a big war, so you'll have a war, and that war, then after the war, a country or the world actually goes into recession and then depression, and then after that it comes out of it and someone else then takes over and it thrives. So where were we with the pandemic? For me, COVID was like a war. The world shut down like World War II. Nobody was making money. Everybody was in a state of shock like a world war. And governments were paying people to stay at home as well. And that in itself is going to then, we're going to come out of that. And we know that prices have gone up. We know that, inflation, which it always does after a major unsettlement in the world. But what will happen is we will hopefully go into a negative and come out of it very quickly as well. And a whole new era will start, and people then will start to be successful and build their businesses up and everything as well. So the next thing is always about distraction. You know, everything is a distraction. Everything you switch on your TV, it's distraction. You know, I remember when there was the Californian fires going on last year, and there was friends of mine in California going, "Oh, the fire's terrible, the fires are terrible." And I says, "Who's setting them on fire?" And they looked at me and gone, "Well, we never thought of that," because they just thought it was global warming setting them on fire. But you could have some maniac going out lighting one or two fires or something. You know, we look at these things objectively and ask questions. Always ask questions. We don't have to agree, but we should be able to ask questions and get the answers on it.
Yeah, and you want to fact check. So when I teach, or even when anybody's working with me, I said, don't assume everything that I'm saying is fact or gospel. You should always go and double check, because first off, I value that. You know, you're going to make sure that, oh, well, here's the latest update, so I'm not saying something incorrectly anymore. I could remember something incorrect, so you should check.
We're allowed to get it wrong, and understand facts, datas, and figures. You know, so you have to sort of look at them all and understand what's the modeling or what's behind it. Because there's people, you know, I've learned in business that the higher the people go within an organization, the harder it is for them to let go of control. And only when you come very self-aware, you need to ask those questions. What am I doing for the greater good instead of myself? And you have egotistic, you have, you know, psychopathic tendencies. You know, it's about, I want to keep onto control. And I think that people need to just be vigilant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so hard to believe we've come to the end of the show, and we haven't even we will do this again, Joe. I promise you. This is like good combo for sure. And I'm not usually a person that likes to shorten full words. So yeah. What is the best mentoring advice that you would like to share with our listeners? It can be your mentoring advice or something that somebody's told you, but what is it?
Spend wisely. Yeah, when you start an organization and you jump out of that and you want to build it, you know, don't run after all the bells and whistles, and, you know, spend wisely. Because, you know, when you run out of money, the game is over.
Spend wisely also applies to not just money, time, relationships, right?
Good point. Yeah.
Your own health. You can't get some of these things back, like time and health. Money can come and go, but time and health, no.
And be kind to yourself. You're doing a great job. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, those are good things. Treat yourself, tell yourself the same wisdom that you pass on to others. Be sure to say it to yourself, right?
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah.
So how can our listeners find you? I've got your website, your joedalton.ie website. I've got your LinkedIn profile, but is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to find you on?
No, they'll, you know, they catch me on the website, or they, you know, happily connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm on Facebook as well, but mainly I hang around LinkedIn, and, you know, and there's a couple of blogs, and I'll try and write content and video and everything on the website and the two of them. But yeah.
Well, and of course, I'm going to include your podcast too as a link. You always do these postcards on the show at the end of the video show, so our listeners know what I'm talking about, where you can find the links of the person that was on the show, and we'll have your website, your podcast, and then also your LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
I think that's Acast or something, but you'll find me somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
If it's meant to be.
Yeah. When you Google your name, you come up for, I think it's like 6 or 7 pages. So there's a lot out there on you. That's good, though. That's good because
yes, that's good.
That is good.
Keeping it active on it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I'm definitely going to bring you back. And just so you know, a little heads up, when we go into 2023, so hard to believe, we do the top 30 shows. And for 1 week, we put them out there. We tag you guys. You'll get a bunch of stuff so that you can obviously make the downloads happen. But whoever the top 3 are, they get to come back again in 2023. They get an award. We give out an award, and
Lovely.
There's a little press release that we put out. So these are the top 3. You know? So anyway, I hope it's you.
Hope it's me too. Hope it's
Yeah.
me as well.
Yeah.
But look, it was a pleasure. You're a great host. Thank you very much. And I've enjoyed being on the other part of this. My dog is eating my hand at the moment.
I can hear him dancing. Those little nails are on the floor.
But delighted. It's nice to be on the receiving end. So I'm honored, and I'm very grateful for asking me onto your show as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We want to thank our sponsor, Cat 5 Studios. Thank you to our production team, Ayana Sanders, and our video interns, Josue Gonzalez, Dina Burks, Lester Eccles, and Gio Vargas. Our music is by Sophie Lloyd. If you would like to have your inclusion tip of the week shared on our show, record your inclusion tip, send it in an audio file to info@4c.tech, and include your name, job role, and where you work. We will email you an intern pursuit green screens for your next video conference call. You can also visit employers4change at www.e4c.tech to learn how you can create real diversity and inclusion culture while scaling your people for the future of work. Thank you for supporting the Intern Whisperer Podcast by subscribing to our show on Podbean or your favorite podcast channels.